Our result statement is each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. Our next agenda item is to adopt the agenda. Are there any questions or any issues about the remainder of the agenda? And if hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Yana. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Jen. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Our agenda has been adopted. Before we get started today, and I love this part with our students here, this is the best part. I did want to just, this week kicks off Teacher Appreciation Week, so I want to extend a heartfelt gratitude to our amazing teachers in our district. So please just take we are. As we all know, the true magic is happening in the classroom. So we are very, very grateful for our teachers. And this is also another favorite part is that we get to honor and affirm our students. And here we have such a wonderful group of students. Before we get to our art students, before I turn it over to Dr. Clarity, I do want to let everyone know why we're wearing shirts that all match. We don't normally dress alike. It's not something we typically do. But Yana and I were able to attend the kickoff for the Black Girl Magic Conference just over a week ago, and it was the first time it was held here in Verona, and it was a very powerful time of affirmation for our students, and we're wearing these shirts tonight to elevate the excellence of these young women in our district, and we just want to take a minute to just show our support and affirm and empower. So with that, we want to also affirm and empower our wonderful students here as well, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clarity.
All right. Good. I almost said morning. It's not morning. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I wanted to reiterate what President Steer-Christian just stated with the educator appreciation. We know that this is much more than a week. Our educators play a vital role, not just in our schools and our district, but in society. All of us in this space were impacted because of the work and dedication of educators, and we would not be where we are. Our society would not be what it is without their hard work, dedication, what they mean to centering students, to elevating students, and giving themselves and their livelihood to making each of us better people. So thank you so much to our educators. And believe me, it's far more than a week, but we are going to celebrate this week. And our students. We open up our meetings, and then it's actually hard for us to keep going because we do our students first, and then we got to talk about technical stuff. And but this is the time for us to celebrate, and we're going to celebrate in the area of art today. And as we think about what the arts mean as a truest form of expression and being able to communicate through so many modes of that is, and it's quite frankly something that I can't do. And that's why I celebrate it even more, because our central office serves as a museum, as it will, with these forms of art and the past art, and I get to walk past those every day, and it's a constant reminder of why we do the work of education, to be able to walk by and see the talent and the expression that so many of our students bring. And so today we get to celebrate a student from each school and see this art live, and just get to hear so much about many of the scholars that we have today. So this is your time to be honored, your time to shine, and let you know that you now have a legacy here in the Verona Area School District that will live forever in our hallways and on our walls. So thank you so much to what you bring to the district, and thank you so much, and our parents. Thank you so much for your guidance and support and everything you bring to allowing us just to have a moment with the young scholars that grace our hallways on a daily basis. So I'm going to open up, and there's always that first one that wants to go. Who gets to go first? But so our first artist to be recognized, and this will be represented by the Queen of Art. Ms. Lois Feiner. And today we're going to celebrate Phoenix Solace. Phoenix. So as they're demonstrating the art, I'm going to read just a quick narrative. Phoenix is a third grader at Glacier Edge Elementary and is a true delight to have in art class. She is consistently kind, attentive, respectful, helpful, and a friend to all. Her welcoming and positive personality make her a joy to be around. Phoenix is also mature and responsible. She appreciates and honors the work of her peers and enjoys working in all art media and styles. Phoenix cares about her work and uses high quality craftsmanship in everything she designs. Well done, Phoenix. You are a true gift to Glacier Edge Elementary and to the Verona Area School District. Ms. Feiner feels very fortunate to be your art teacher. Congratulations to Phoenix. Next, we're going to have Mernaz Karaliwala. Mernaz is a sixth grader at Core Knowledge Middle School. Mernaz is a very talented student artist, as you can see. Her skills are advanced for her age, and that she's becoming is because she loves to practice art. When Mernaz isn't swimming or going to gymnastics, she paints and draws at home throughout the year. I selected Mernaz not only for excellent craftsmanship, but also for her ability to demonstrate what a student artist does in class. She treats her classmates with respect and kindness while she models excellent time management, care for her art materials and studio space, along with following through on all assignments. She's proudly presented today by Ms. Sarah Grodsky. Congratulations to Mernaz. Our next student is Claire Meyer. Claire is a 11th grader at Verona High School. And this is represented by our art teacher, Carrie Punzel. This is her third year with Claire as an art student, and seeing her continued growth and dedication to the arts has been inspiring. Claire is a student who always puts in full effort to everything she does and wants to continue to improve. She seeks feedback and regularly is also open to learning and trying new techniques and styles as a way to grow. She supports a positive class environment with her bright energy and is able to help her peers with questions and support in the ways of a skilled mentor. Claire doesn't shy away from challenging herself, and because of this and all of the skills mentioned, I know Claire will be a successful artist and citizen no matter where her future leads her. She deserves to be celebrated. I'm so glad I've had the opportunity to be her teacher the past 3 years. Congratulations to Claire Meyer. Our next scholar is Javon Clay. Javon's art will be presented by his art teacher, Ann Cruz. Javon is a third grader at Sugar Creek Elementary. Javon is such an extraordinary artist, and I'm so proud to be his art teacher. During this past year, Javon has demonstrated a special way of seeing color and incorporating it into his projects. He truly shines when he's able to play with color, mixing different hues in his own way and infusing the class with his enthusiasm and curiosity. I have learned how to be a better teacher by having Javon as my student, and I appreciate the way he steps up to any creative challenge I offer him. I look forward to watching his talents grow with his hard work and dedication. Congratulations, Javon. No, you're okay. Hey, you celebrate that baby. Go ahead.
You're doing a great job reading over all of our. Ooh.
I'm a little jealous because I don't get to see it till the last minute. Our next scholar is Molly Meigen. Molly is an 8th grader at Savannah Oaks Middle School. Molly's creativity and love of art have been evident from the time she's entered 6th grade. She is a quiet, contemplative artist who puts a great deal of time and energy into making every piece of art shine. Molly's sense of design and craftsmanship is always outstanding. She is also imaginative and willing to think outside the box. Besides inspiring others with her artwork, Molly is a kind, respectful student who models excellent work habits. She has been a pleasure to work with these past 3 years, and I know she will continue to shine in high school and beyond. She's presented by her art teacher, Ms. Cecily Block, and congratulations to Molly. Next, from Stoner Prairie and presented by our teacher, Tina Christensen, we have Grace Benzie. Grace is a 4th grader at Stoner Prairie Elementary. I've had the pleasure of having Grace as a learner for 5 years, and it's been wonderful to see her imagination, perseverance, and skill grow over time. Grace is hands down an outstanding student, artist, and explorer. Not only is she creative, but she is eager to teach and share her skills with peers. She is kind, caring, and her positivity and excitement for learning is contagious, clearly. Grace is always ready to try something new, and she enjoys creating her own characters in her art. In this painting, she created 3 pyramids. These creatures are half cat and half mermaid. Using oil pastels, she has created bright coral on the ocean floor. Then using tints and shades, in the background, she shows how the color of water changes as it goes from shallow to deep. This is a beautiful painting. Congratulations on your hard work and keep on creating. You're gonna be in Hollywood one day. Our next scholar is presented by our teacher. Our next scholar is presented by our teacher Cole Melvin is Weston Wood from Country View. Since getting to know Weston in 1st grade, I've been continually impressed by his ability to draw. He would then and can now draw his favorite animals and characters in full detail just from the image he is painting in his mind. When Weston comes to the Country View Art Studio, he enters with the spirit of an artist. He is eager to learn about art and is an active participant in our studio discussions. Weston is a fearless art maker. He dives right into the projects and uses his time in the art studio preciously. When he makes mistakes, like all artists do, he is calm and quick to problem solve. Weston works hard on his projects and continues his process week by week until the artwork is resolved. He puts care and craftsmanship into his work and celebrates his artistic victories. Keep up the great work, Weston. I'm so thankful to be able to celebrate you and your art. Congratulations. Our next scholar, as presented by our teacher Abby Pfeiffer, is Sebastian Bargout. Sebastian is a 3rd grader at New Century School. Since Sebastian was in kindergarten, he has shown a strong love of art and determination when it comes to drawing. His skill has grown over the years, and he has continued to show great focus and concentration when he is in art. What is especially impressive, however, is that he has learned to persevere with his drawings and artwork even when things are not perfect and don't do as planned. It has been an even greater joy this year to see Sebastian try different media, draw different poses of his favorite figures, and adjust to his plan as his work develops. This flexibility and creativity have helped him grow into the confident artist that he is today. Congratulations to Sebastian. Our next scholar, is presented by our teacher, Sarah Gotsky, is Rio Heidenreich. Rio is an 8th grader at Badger Ridge Middle School. Rio has used acrylic paint to create this Inkling, a character in the Nintendo game Splatoon. Rio has always created exceptional work in her art classes, and when she is not in school, she enjoys practicing her drawing skills and skateboarding. I'm so thankful to have her as an art student, and I wish her the best in the future. Congratulations to Rio. Our next scholar is Nawan Guerick. Nawang is a 4th grader at Verona International School. In the time that I've known her, Nawang never ceases to surprise me with the unexpected ideals, creativity, and humor she incorporates into her work. Her work always displays the great drawing skill she has developed, but she has also uses her drawing as a starting point for telling a story, creating an animal, or using a new and unpredictable material. She is kind and helpful to those around her, and yet always shows intense focus and determination as she works in the art room and brings to life all the thoughts, ideals, and stories that she comes up with. This art is presented in conjunction with our teacher, Abby Pfeiffer. Congratulations to Nawang. Our final scholar today is Mike Jones, and that art will be presented by Silas Joville. Mike is a 12th grader at Verona High School. Over the past 4 years, I've been able to watch Mike grow to a truly great artist. He challenged himself in every piece of art he creates, and his skills lie in various mediums, from drawing to sculpture to photography, digital art, and everything in between. I chose this piece as it was a self-portrait taken by Mike during photography class, which he then created a digital rendition. Mike is able to see things in a different way and encourages those around him not to give up. It is a joy to have Mike in class, and I know he will continue to inspire the world through his art. Congratulations to Mike Jones. So as we conclude this presentation, I can't tell you how delighted we are to be able to have this art in it's our museum. It really is our art museum of central office, and this will be on display. Family and parents, if anyone is not able to join you today, please, our central office is always open, and you're welcome to give tours, and we'll provide the art for you at any time that you want to just take a look, or you just want to reminisce on the talent that our students, your students, have brought to life. Thank you again, and I'll turn it over to the board if they have anything to say.
First of all, I'm blown away. I am just so appreciative that all of these scholars were willing to share their talents with us tonight. This is absolutely just such a day brightener. It's a week brightener. Oh my goodness. And I'm blown away. I still have trouble writing my name legibly. Yeah. And here, this is just absolutely astounding, the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for being here.
If anyone is offering art classes,
Right?
I will be an interested student. But also, thank you, students. None of your art looked the same, and it all looked amazing. And you are just so wonderful. And thank you, teachers, for acknowledging every unique part about your students. They were all just so confident and wonderful in their own ways coming up here. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. My face just hurts from smiling. And I would just say the same things. So that's my conclusion.
Yeah, I know, right. Yeah, no, I completely agree with Jen. It's like, whoa, wow. Oh, I just think about me in art class, and I was not recognized, and I shouldn't have been. But it's so amazing to see the work that each of these students are doing, and, to see that they're in 3rd grade and 6th grade and 11th grade. There's so much more that's going to come from them, and I just can't wait to see all the other work that they're going to do. I am so honored to be able to see their work in our central office and be able to share it with our community, all the wonderful things that they're doing. So students, thank you so much for showing us your artwork. Thank you for sharing your talent with us. This is the best part of our meeting. Like, really, it is. Afterwards, we're like, I mean, sure, whatever you say at this point. But thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate being able to honor each of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our feelings will not be hurt because it's not going to be exciting after this. And so if you need to go, again, congratulations to everyone. And thank you so much to our teachers for guiding our
Thank you. So fun. So impressive. Just the ability to freehand draw and oh my God. Amazing.
How you doing? Congratulations. Oh.
Oh, look at that back table
Uh-oh.
back there. I didn't realize they had a table. I suppose that makes
Wow.
sense. 'Cause sitting in a chair, they should be able to do that at the same time, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. I've grown. We've all grown together so much. I know. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing this talented young lady to join us. Oh my goodness, it's so amazing. You are amazing. Can I shake your hand? Absolutely. Great. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I'll come up there. I'll come up there.
Like when the mom reacted, it's like,
So cool.
I didn't think about the fact that yeah, I know. Yeah. Super cool. Yeah. Oh my God. That's so cool. How old am I?
Wow. In the future, we should auction off student artwork. We gotta fund all of our budget problems.
That's a pretty good point.
Oh,
Can you
yeah,
imagine how much worth is in that central office right now?
Started there.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
12-year-old teacher.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, anything you remember there, you've grown a lot. Now we got to keep going. All right.
Yeah, we lost Diana in the building. I think they just took the opportunity to skip out.
I think we're still alive.
This is the turnout.
Right.
Hey, team, can we see if we can get our board members back, please?
I think they might have ran to the
Socializing or going to the bathroom.
When we get the rest of our board, we'll do just a quick update on just like, yeah, we had an update on her yesterday.
Yeah, I need to bring
I was going to just say something about yesterday with Greek, and then
really good.
I'll let,
our,
I need an infusion of caffeine at this time. I have that again.
yes,
I have that in mind. I have.
yeah.
Yeah, that was like it.
Okay.
And then I have
Didn't
Yeah,
want that
yeah.
anymore.
added a slide.
That's the problem.
Oh,
Is
you-
it our turn to get back to the boring stuff?
I'll deal with that.
I'm trying
I
to.
didn't see it when I went through.
water really does have the same effect. If you're not dehydrated, you may have more allergies.
I think that's definitely true.
I have it in my slide.
In some ways it's because, what is it?
We have an old. Yeah, no,
Blame my son for getting me up at 5 o'clock.
I'm forgetting I'm at 4:30 to work
Yeah,
out.
yeah, that's your fault.
It is
You
my
do that
fault.
voluntarily.
Let me refresh.
I have that one. It's in board docs.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's a good point. When I
So,
was exercising regularly, you actually don't feel more tired.
And it's in the superintendent. Yeah.
Gotta get back there.
I also means I like going to bed at 8 o'clock.
So that's fun.
Yeah, I have like.
I have a problem on Mondays.
Let's see if I can get the updated one. Yep, no, I have the updated. This is teacher. All right. This is the problem when I prep for meetings before.
My student already.
I just want to close the door.
Emma, can you close the door for us, please? Thanks.
Okay, board. I know this is kind of tough to come back from.
Say that again.
And nobody found us interesting beyond that either. We know how to clear a room.
Except for our captive audience. And now we will entertain you. So,
You lucky ducks.
I did want to just, usually we go straight from all of this, the high point of having student recognition. So we're gonna have a few like cool board recognition, board
Let's
updates.
do it.
So, Yana, we've already explained why we have matching shirts. And do you want to explain your, last week, your visit with the Black Student Union?
Yes. So last week, like Tuesday night, I was invited to a meeting on Wednesday morning, but it was fine. No, they had told me before that it was coming, but I was invited to speak to the Black Student Union at the high school. I hadn't talked to Black Student Union since they had started, and it was like 10 of them. There was like 60 plus students in there. Oh, they had the room sold up. It was so many students. It was so exciting for me because I didn't know that we had that many students in BSU. But it was such a great time with them. I didn't do a lot of talking. I let them like ask me questions, and I just kind of went with whatever they asked. And so we talked about college. We talked about time management, Greek life, setting boundaries. I mean, they were asking me some questions like, how do you manage your calendar with everything that you have going on? I'm like, good question. I don't.
You have an
So-
answer for that?
Yeah.
Right. I was like, can you help
Same
me?
questions I asked. Is that what you're saying?
No, the question they were asking me, one of the students asked me, like, beyond a network, what do you feel is BSU's role in supporting us as students? And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. They were good questions. But we had a good time. Many of them came to me afterwards. There were so many questions I didn't get a chance to answer all of them. So many of them stayed afterwards to ask more questions. And it was just, to see our students in action and, just get a chance to talk to them in a different way. I don't think we get enough chances to interact with students. And so that was great for me. I will also say, Dr. Clarity, I loved seeing the students engage with you. All of them were so excited. There was a line to talk to Dr. Clarity, and they were waiting for the next person to finish, and then somebody else jumped up. And so just being able to see the relationships that you've built with those students and them coming into a room and seeing you and like coming up to you and hugging you and having conversations with you and waiting to talk to you, I thought that was amazing as well. So I appreciate them for having me. And Dr. Clarity, thanks for allowing me to be there as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a great presentation, Yanni, and just the real authentic talk. And just come into space sometime. It's every Wednesday. Just stop in and see Black excellence at play. That's all I can tell you. It's a phenomenal experience, and it's a space for students to be our authentic selves. But as we continue to work to make our full district that same safe place. And we know we're on that journey, but this is a part of it. And thank you for being there.
Yeah, of course. I guess the only other thing I didn't mention, not all of the students were Black students, which was also super cool. There were all students in there. It was just like everybody was there and talking and hanging out and having a good time. So it was great to see how that space has evolved so much from when it began. I was smiling the whole time. I missed my next work meeting because I was there. I was like, sorry, but I'm gonna have to reschedule this one. But thanks again.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. Yeah, that's very cool. So yesterday I was able to go to the 30th anniversary celebration for a building, not quite the same as, getting to interact with students, but it was really cool to see the history. So it was the Verona Middle School, then it was Badger Ridge, and now it is Sugar Creek. And to see how it's evolved over the 30 years, it started out when our Governor Tony Evers was superintendent here. And so he was there yesterday to celebrate the building, but he was also there with his daughter who went to school there, and his grandson who is a current student, and then his granddaughter who is a soon-to-be student. So it was very exciting to see 3 generations that have passed through, and we know that the magic is not in the building, it's in the classroom, but the buildings provide a place for this magic to happen, and it was very exciting to just be able to witness that and see the interactions between the staff after 30 years of being colleagues. It was very nice. So Dr. Hawkins and Marcy and I were able to interact, and it was very cool. So not quite is the same as being with the kids, but it was really fantastic. So with that, I keep thinking we have our superintendent update, but we don't. We have our board reorganization.
You're right.
Mm.
I know. Yeah, I'm next. I'll wait.
If you want to jump in, we can. I know when we throw new things on the agenda, it throws me off. Okay, so we do have, after every election in April, we have an annual board reorganization process. And if you guys have that pulled up in your board docs, there's the handout. Does anyone have any questions about the process? No questions. Okay. And this is something that we will do annually, and it has to be done within a certain amount of time after the election. And usually in the first meeting in May is when we always do it. Okay, so in this, we first are going to gather nominations. We close nominations. We vote. The first candidate who has a simple majority is the holder of that office, and then we repeat. So we can start with, this is always awkward when you're the president asking, okay, do we have any nominations for board president?
I would like to nominate you, Meredith, for board president.
I feel like I'm pandering a little bit. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other nominations? No, it says I need to ask 3 times. And no, it was always very intentional. 3 times you have to ask. It's like, okay, any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, is there a second for that nomination?
I second.
Thank you. Okay, we will consider the nominations closed. All in favor of me
Being president.
I know, yeah, because I'm so graceful with this. That's really demonstrated that. Signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for nominating me, and thank you for your confidence in my ability to lead this board. This board is really, truly an amazing group of individuals, and I'm excited to see what we can accomplish, because we've accomplished quite a bit in this past year already. So I want to thank my fellow board members. So thank you.
Thank you for putting in the work.
Mhm.
There it is.
And thank you.
It's extra
Yeah.
work. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, everybody.
Accepting.
Okay, our next officer is vice president. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Jen Murphy.
Okay, do we have any other nominations?
I can't nominate 2 people, can
You can.
Just
I
to
just want
make
to see what happens.
I nominate Yana Williams. Can I do
Say
that
anything
too?
in the
Covered on my
procedure.
procedure sheet.
I don't know.
I think you only would nominate
I think either
one.
of them would make an
Yeah.
awesome. Okay.
Well, we have an amazing group of individuals.
I know.
And this is one, I'm going to take a sidebar here for a second, if you don't mind. When Noah became president back in 2017, he and I were president and vice president, and we just really made an intentional choice that this is a shared leadership board, that everyone has talents that we want to be utilizing. And so we have officers that are doing specific things, but we really want to be elevating all of our board members, because there's talent to be shared across this organization. So this is where there's officers, but there's nobody that is not important to the integral part of this. Okay, So with that, are there any other nominations? That was my one.
I think that was 2.
Okay,
That's
you're
two.
gonna keep
Two.
You get one
keeping
more.
it moving. Okay.
One more.
Okay, any other nominations? Okay, then we will close nominations. Do I have a second on the nomination for Jen Murphy as Vice President?
Second.
A second from Yana. Okay, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jen, congratulations. You are welcome to the Vice Presidency.
Okay. Everyone, thank you.
Okay, next we will move on to Treasurer. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Yana
Yeah.
Williams.
This is where everyone steps
Thanks,
back.
guys.
This is the hard lean-in to nominate the right person.
Okay, do I have any other nominations?
I think I was nominated by 3 people.
There's really no.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay,
No motion.
any other nominations, any other nominations, and any other nominations? We will close the nominations. All in favor of Yana continuing on as treasurer signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Yana, thank you so much for being willing to
Of
continue
course.
on as our treasurer. We greatly appreciate it. Okay, our next position is that of clerk. Opening up for nominations.
I nominate Nicole.
You're gonna make
You're
this.
gonna choke on your drink or
Thank you, Yana.
Okay, any
That's
other
why I thought
nominations?
nominated me for Vice President. I was like,
Any other nominations? Last call. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome to the clerkship.
Thank you so much.
And we have usually had a deputy clerk to kind of assist with clerk duties. And this is not a voted on position. Is there anyone willing to volunteer to be the deputy clerk in case we need someone to step in?
I can do that,
Okay.
as long as it doesn't happen very often.
John and Nicole, you're going to be great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for going through the first part of the board reorganization. We're going to move on to, and congratulations to our officers. I don't know if you all are aware, but this is, again, we have, last time was the first time we had a all-female slate of officers. And so we are, sorry, guys, but this is the first time that we've had
I'm not unhappy about
I
it.
didn't- I think we just.
That's the right answer.
I'll tell you when I'm unhappy.
Okay, next we have, we need to have a motion to hold 2 meetings each month as follows, the first and third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. unless otherwise agreed to and posted accordingly. And I already know we will have several different changes to the calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion from Yana and a second from Joe. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I need a motion to retain the State Bank of Cross Plains as the fiscal depository for the general fund, payroll accounts, and debt service fund.
So moved.
Motion from Yana. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Jen. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes as well.
Was that our bank last time too? No. It's my memory.
Okay, I need a motion to retain as legal counsel for the district the firm of Latham and Clark, the firm of Godfrey and Kahn, the firm of Quarles and Brady, the firm of Boardman and Clark, and the firm of Axley Brindleson. And I know it sounds like we have a lot of legal counsel,
does. It
but they're
really
all
does.
for different specific things that are all different areas. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A motion from Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from John. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes as well.
I'm just impressed that they're not conflicted out somehow. That's like half the law firms.
If you just retain them all, then you never have. a
I used to
problem.
work at one of them, but that was a long time ago.
Okay, I need a motion to designate the Verona Press as the official district newspaper.
So moved.
I have a motion from Yana. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Jen? Okay, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
Before I vote, I'm sorry.
yes.
What does the official newspaper for the district entail?
This is where we post the notices for our meetings.
Ah, gotcha.
Is that right? Any official notice that we need to be posted or published, then that's the paper that it will be,
Awesome.
paper of record.
Thank you.
So, okay, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion passes. I need a motion to hold the annual budget hearing at 6 PM, followed by the annual district meeting on August 15th, 2022.
So moved.
I have a motion from Yana. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from John. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? This motion passes as well. Okay, that was quick. Did everybody get all of our motions and seconds? Okay. The next part we have are our WASB delegate, our alternate, our CISA 2, and our IDAC. There have been times, do we want to, generally, we've had volunteers for these positions. For the WASB, Jen, you did that last year. Is that something you want to continue? Do you want someone else to manage that?
I mean, I certainly don't want to take an opportunity from someone, but having been new, I look forward to the opportunity of attending again, whether or not I'm the official delegate. I'm happy to do it, but if someone is really eager to give that a try.
Well, I'll open it up. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer for it? And if hearing none, Jen, can I volunteer you?
Yes, please. I'm going to do better too next year. So I'm committed.
Okay, so Jen, I'm going to appoint you to the WASB delegate.
Wonderful.
And we need an alternate for the WASB delegate.
I can do that,
Joe, thank you very much.
considering everyone else is doing something else.
All right, we'll point you to that.
Maybe I'll take a vacation the third week of January.
Okay, quick sidebar, we're back. Okay, John, you've been doing the CISA 2. Is that something that you would be willing to continue?
Yes, I'm still on the board of control, so it'd be nice to keep that continuity going.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for doing that. That is not a small
great.
service. I appreciate that very much. And we need someone to be the IDAC representative. This is something that I think we've had a couple people sit on the IDAC team, and it's actually really, really interesting. And I would highly recommend it. It's one of those, it's quarterly. We meet with Chad. We have contacts with Fitchburg, with Verona governments, and we talk about what's coming up, what's going on, growth. And it's something I have found to be very interesting. So if anybody would be interested in being involved in that, I would highly recommend it.
I'm happy to do it unless someone else wants to.
Joe, I think you would be fantastic at that. So
Okay.
we will put you as our IDAC representative, and then
Can
is
we
it-
still, I mean, I've been attending them. I'd love to continue if that, is there a number do we have to avoid a quorum? You know, how to, okay.
be no more than 3. So we can definitely have, Joe and then Jen, if you want to continue with that.
Or if we want to rotate in.
I would love like a rotating
rotating,
option
yeah.
if possible.
Yeah.
It just sounds super interesting.
Well, let's have, Joe, you are our official IDAC
Yes.
rep.
Sure.
And then we can kind of work with you and with Chad to see if there's any floating in and out, because it's interesting things. And then Joe, if you can also then give an update to the board after each IDAC meeting and kind of fill everybody in, because there's lots going on and you'll be the first to hear about all of the stuff. through
Okay,
that. So
that would be great.
thank you, guys. Okay, we have officially finished up with our board reorganization process. Thank you all very, very much. Dr. Clarity, finally, you get to have your superintendent report.
All right.
We have put you off a long time today.
So, well, first, congratulations to all the nominees and your new seats on the Board of Education. We're real excited for another great year of work and to have some continuity for hopefully a long time. So thank you and congratulations. Marcy, can we send out the new and returning positions to all of our media outlets so they understand the organization of our Board of Education? Thank you. All right, so I'm happy to do the superintendent report, and I have a few updates I want to make sure we get through. First and foremost, we've done one of the most important things to do, which is recognize our educators. We have a philosophy in the Verona Area School District that every staff member we consider to be an educator. So we celebrate every staff member as an educator during Education Appreciation Week to make sure that we understand that we know that the magic happens in the classroom, but there are so many supports that go into play that allow that to happen. So we want to acknowledge every educator in our system. As part of the Black Student Union meeting that Yana was presented at, we were able to celebrate a great accomplishment here at the Verona Area School District, and that was the Verona Area School District will be headed to the national competition as the regional champions for the African American History Challenge Bowl. So congratulations to our team from the Verona Area High School. The students will have the honor of being able to represent Wisconsin at the national in Hollywood, Florida. So
Are you chaperoning?
You gosh darn right I am. So I will figure out how to get there as well. But I would feel remiss if I allowed them to be there.
We have policies so you can be gone.
Yeah.
Hi, Chad.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to see the first round that was here at Verona. Truly, Jen and I were able to see that. So it's great news to hear that they have advanced through the regionals. So thank you.
Absolutely. And so we also like to recognize you don't want to say competitors when you talk about learning African American history, but we also definitely want to give a shout out to the Madison Metropolitan School District and the Sun Prairie School District who sent their teams to the regional as well. And just one question difference between Verona Area High School and the Madison, one of the Madison teams went to sudden death with one question, and it's just first person to the buzzer. So congratulations on the quick hands and the smart minds.
Do we get to know what the question was though?
At that point, I think everybody just froze. just please be right. That's all.
That's cool. That's really cool.
All right. So I hate to go from celebration to a more serious topic. In our COVID updates, I need to go back a slide. Can you manually do it? So if you look at the document, depending on when you began to read the updates on our COVID updates, we try to put the most recent information as possible in our COVID updates. So as you can see, comparative to other data in previous meetings, we are at 70 cases, which means that we are now in that a little bit over that 1% threshold that we like to stay under. We did send a letter, if I can get it to come up. There it goes. We did send a letter to our entire community, our families and staff, just reiterating the understanding that we are still in the pandemic and to refocus in on our key strategies or mitigation strategies to not allow our numbers to continue to trend. As we look at Dane County-wide, this is a trend among districts in Dane County where you're seeing this, I would say a moderate spike. So we will continue to monitor, but also just wanted to reiterate, the importance of if you're feeling symptomatic, please stay at home, hand washing and optional masking, especially if you're not sure. Definitely encourage putting a mask on just to protect yourself and to protect others around you. So we'll continue to be transparent as we look at these numbers, but I think this is a place where if we were doing coding, I would put it as yellow and say that we just needed to be in caution mode of not heading back towards a negative trend. Any questions about that or the communication that was sent as a strategy for mitigation? All right. So next we have the referendum update. I am very proud that the Board of Education has assigned me the responsibility of seeking information and informing what it may be a potential vote on a potential referendum. And part of that is the process of providing information to our community, seeking feedback in the form of Q&A, and also seeking feedback through both our site as well as our QR code that allows our guests to provide some additional details. I'm also excited to announce that we've added another board member to the committee, and Joe Haynes. Joe, welcome to the referendum committee, and we're excited for your input and insight.
Thank you.
In front of you, this may look familiar on one side, but we've added some additional information on the back side, and these are as we've learned from our experiences with working with our community and working with our staff, just a clearer summary of the high points that we want people to walk away from in those sessions. And quite honestly, we've gotten great questions. There hasn't been what I would call a bad session. And to me, it doesn't matter if it's 5 people in the crowd or 500. The voice is equally as important, and we are trying to make sure that we get in front of as many as possible. So I'm just going to quickly give you the highlights of what we're hearing. Collectively, it's been stated that once we understand, the premise behind the potential question, that is clear, and at the same time acknowledging that is a very hard concept to communicate. The concept of a potential tax neutral or tax mill neutral referendum is just simply hard to communicate, because our brains are wired to think, up or down based off yes or no. And so we know we need to continue to refine and use visuals to make sure that we get that point across of what that could potentially look like. We've heard school finance is complex, and we've all been in budget meetings, and bless Chad and his team. He makes it as digestible as possible, but they've clearly said, try to make a complex system, make it as simple as possible when you're presenting it to our community and to our staff, which we agree. So I hear the themes of understandable and digestible coming across, and then ensuring that everyone has a clear universal definition of what mill rate neutral is and what that means, and what that means for any person that will be headed to the polls, that they understand what that concept means. As you know, we've committed to leading with the why, and so we were asked if the community understands our why when presenting, and the response we get into yesterday, there's an understanding of the decades high inflation. There's an understanding of what no new money per pupil has, what it means, and they have a clear understanding of what a highly competitive market has done to drive the necessitation of a potential question on a November ballot. And finally, I just wanted to let the board know that there will be a major budget update on May 16th at our next board meeting. And if possible, please join our virtual session as we go Facebook Live tomorrow to our community. And we're excited for that, to be able to present in a different mode to our community. Questions about the referendum?
I have a quick question. One, I just wanted to commend Chad for the presentation and his work at the meetings, because I know they are very complex concepts. My only question in looking at the materials, and I'm sure we're working with communication experts on this, we only ever say mill rate neutral. And I wonder why we don't use the word tax in there, to throw tax and neutral right next to each other to really drive home the point that this will not raise the rate of your taxes as allocated to the schools. That was the only thing that kind of struck me, that it didn't seem like, it maybe could have been a little clearer. But that was my only question as to, did we purposely decide not to throw the word tax next to the word neutral
Correct.
in there for a reason?
Yeah, what would end up happening if the board were to go that direction is that the first tax bill that was higher would end up in my office. because people will equate tax. You said tax neutral, but my bill potentially went up even though it had nothing to do with what the district did. As soon as a property value goes up, the tax bill is going to go up. Or if you did any improvements on a house, the tax bill will go up. So we've tried to remove that language so there is no confusion about if your tax bill is actually higher. And I see, Chad, did you want to go any deeper on that?
Chad, you're just itching to come up.
Yeah, well said, Dr. Clarity. I think the thing I'll add that we will get into in much greater detail 2 weeks from now at our next major finance update is the fact that, and I think you guys probably saw it in the Madison news this weekend, the average home in Madison went up 12% in terms of their value. And we've been working with both, in particular, City of Fitchburg and Verona to get a little peek behind the curtain in terms of what their work relative to property reassessments that's going on right now. And we also expect our property value, our tax base to go up at easily 8% this upcoming year, which means if your home is worth more, 8 to 10 to 20% more, and we're still considering this idea of mill rate, that there's the potential of your taxes going up in line with the value of your home. So we're actually, I'm going to bring this to the board on the 16th. We actually think there's a possibility here that we trend in the direction of a lower mill rate because of the TID closures and because of property values going up as much as they are. Because our property tax base has the possibility of going up, get your mind around this, $500 million for next year in 1 year, $500 million in one single year. Meaning that if we kept the mill rate the same, that the tax we would take in, primarily almost all for Fund 39, because that's our biggest lever relative to managing the mill rate, would mean that property taxes has the potential of going up. Not our own doing, because your property value is going up, but as a board, we have the ability to toggle that mill rate and still keep the tax revenues we need in check, but possibly even bring our mill rate down with a past referendum. So we'll get into that in a little greater detail 2 weeks from now, but and to kind of double down on what Dr. Clarity is mentioning, our talking points to the community has to be around mill rate, which adds one more layer of complexity because it's not just guaranteed no new taxes. It's our portion, kind of our taxing quota when it comes to $1,000 in property value. Right now, what we've been exploring is a mill rate neutral idea, but property value plays a big factor in that. That helps.
I think it does. I think when looking at this, whenever I have to explain like complex IT concepts at work, I really enjoy using like pictures or analogies or things like that. And so I just wonder, like, if we get to a certain point, if we could explore different, like showing one bucket from the other bucket or something visually explanatory to folks. But I very much respect, especially with that last point about Madison property values going up, why you throw the word tax in and you just add on everyone's baggage.
Right. And we don't want to steal all my thunder for the 16th.
I'm so sorry. I'll be quiet.
But we have we're working on an exciting new infographic.
I love the
that
I
will
literally
be
almost asked
2
you.
buckets. So that's coming. You'll get to see that 2 weeks from now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
We'll just be on pins and needles until then.
I will. I'm so sorry.
John?
I just, so the presentation that I saw here a while back, I thought was excellent. And I think that the feedback that we got reflected the level of clarity that you put out there for the public, particularly given that people were coming at it with different concerns and different ideas. And then everybody kind of ended up in the same place. I think that spoke to the clarity of the information presented. One of the things that I want to make sure I understand clearly is, since we are communicating around mill rate in particular, is it true that we actually have the authority to increase the mill rate as it is now dramatically, but that's primarily for capital expenditures, new buildings, because under the previous referendum, whatever it was, I think we were authorized for like 13.88% as a mill rate. And we've stayed dramatically lower than that intentionally and still manage to pay things off. And so I wonder how much more we can communicate, not only that we're keeping the mill rate much lower than we thought we would, or that we have the authority to do, but that really that also reflects the need to get permission for money to be used for operations as opposed to capital. Because while we can increase that mill rate, that's just for capital expenditures. Am I understanding that correctly?
You are, and it's not, it's a legal requirement that we ask for that permission.
Yeah.
So, and the added piece I would, I tack onto that is the fact that the community has trusted this board and previous board members to manage the tax rate and the mill rate. And we've done so to get $1 below, even more than $1 below the mill rate promised pre-referendum. And that we'd be asking for the same permission from our community. There is the potential, if the state budget comes in better than we built into our assumptions, that the board would be put in a position that they could actually under levy on Fund 10 with the revenue limit set in place following a past referendum. So that's more than anything, you're asking the community the permission to trust the board to manage the mill rate. And we haven't gone deep into this. This is how Racine passed a $1 billion referendum.
Right.
They flat out said, let's take out the entire equation relative to the state imposed revenue limit. Racine residents, do you trust the school board for the next 20 years to manage the mill rate? Yes or no, $1 billion. It passed by like 2 votes, but that's the direction they headed. We're not there, but that's the big idea, that the community would give us operating permission, and it would be up to the board to manage the mill rate accordingly.
So I think it's a B, 1 billion, right?
$1 billion referendum.
Yeah. 1 billion. Yeah.
That was the last
Like
presidential
an
election.
offer, that was like an operating referendum.
It was, yeah. And they there's some complexities there I could get into, but they did it with the premise that they'd use operating money to also maintain their facilities. So they will be doing school additions with that extra $1 billion, but they don't have to worry about the revenue limit for the next 20 years because the Racine community said, yes, we trust our board. And essentially, if the mill rate gets out of hand, you can change that with what happens when you elect board members. So that was the strategy they took into that referendum to the tune of $1 billion. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. We took a quick left-hand turn for referendum.
Really
I could
did.
stay up here all night, but I'm not going to, Dr. Clerk. I know we have a long agenda.
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
All right. As we wrap up referendum, I just wanted to put in front of you just kind of a visual of the sessions that have already taken place. We're excited that we have completed all building level at our schools, listening sessions, and been able to get feedback. We finished those last 2 today with Stoner Prairie and Savannah Oaks, and you can see the upcoming community events on next slide. It's going now. I just got to point the right directions. Right. Any final questions, referendum?
No, thank you again for all the work that you and Chad have done to put these together. They've been very, very clear.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, board, Dr. Clardy tried to save me from jumping over an agenda item, and I just plowed right ahead. So we're going to circle back. If we can go back to, this is my first official vote as being reelected as president, and I already screwed that up. We're just gonna go back to the board calendar. If you can take a look at under 4B, school board meetings and times, we have the modified board calendar. Yep. See, now it all rings a bell. Okay, so can we take a look at that? And then we want to make sure that we have the calendar set out as far in advance as possible. And this is the one that pretty much reflects the changes that we typically have made in the past to accommodate for holiday times, spring breaks, things like that. So if we can go ahead and take a vote to approve this calendar in conjunction with our typical, the goal of having a first and third Monday with these exceptions, that would be great. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Jen. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Joe. All in favor of approving the calendar as presented, signify with aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? This calendar passes. Thank you so much. Thank you for trying to get me back on track, Dr. Clarity. I appreciate the assist. Okay, we are now back on the agenda as it's supposed to be. Okay, at this time, we are going to move into monitoring OE8. And again, I just want to make sure that we're all centered in our reasonableness standard. Reasonableness is this going to help us? Are these indicators going to help us judge whether the administration is in compliance with our policies? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clarity to present on OE8.
All right, thank you. I just going to resettle my 17 documents here, so just give me a
I'm in no
second.
position to judge at this point.
It's not a problem. It's somewhere in between artwork and that's why you keep a hard copy on the computer. All right. So as we get ready to roll into OE8, this is I would say at best, a unique operations policy because as we roll through it, we'll kind of see that it's a lot of the indicators or potential indicators of approval by the Board of Education will, in essence, be determined by the board's evaluation of me towards the end. And so since I am in the midst of year one and I haven't had an evaluation yet and excited for that opportunity to be evaluated here in the next month or so, it's really kind of this space of your feedback will actually drive how well or not I've done in making sure that I upheld the standards of communicating with and support for the Board of Education. Some of the immediate things that we've tried to do is center board voice when you're not present, and making sure that we talk about the expectations of the Board of Education, the expectations of the policy of the Board of Education, and also speak firmly on, especially the ones that have been improved, the values of our Board of Education. So you'll see myself and members of our team use the sentence stem, the Board of Education values, and then make statements. And we've tried to do that in public settings so that even when you're not currently or in those spaces where your voice is still there and your presence is still felt in our community. So with that, we're going to go into the approval or not the approval process yet, the question process of the indicators. And we'll begin with the opening one as soon as I get in the right spot. And I think given the length of it, it'll be best if you just kind of ask me questions, as it is, I think, 12 deep.
So this would be a great time if the board has any, clarifying questions about this. I want to make sure that first of all, that the opening interpretation really matches what our intentions were when we wrote this policy. And then when we go from there, if we can kind of go in order through the different subparts to ask questions, kind of keep us in order. So does anybody, let's kick it off. Are there any questions starting with the opening interpretation? Okay, we can move on to any of the subparts. Any questions starting with, OE 8.1?
I had one question. In the interpretation of 8.1, To me, it reads like this is day-to-day things, whereas the policy doesn't read that it's day-to-day. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify that for me. So complete information within an estimated time frame on notable issues and happenings in the schools. But the above talks about like monitoring data. So just curious,
Can you, on indicator,
not the indicator, the interpretation, like the beginning part of 8.1. And maybe I don't have the right 8.1.
the Verona Area School District values complete information with an estimated time frame.
Yes. So the way that reads is like day to day, if something happens, like you're going to inform us about it, which is great. But I just feel that that's different from the policy, which is around monitoring data, which I feel is not like notable issues and happenings in the schools. It could be. I just need some clarification.
Yeah, so if you, in other OEs, there are, for instance, there's OE1, which speaks to making sure that the reputation of the district is held to a high standard. I'm not quoting it specifically, but I just want to use that as an example. Those are instances where, if I, in layman's terms, I don't want the board to hear negative news about the district without having given the board the foresight that this information may be coming out. And both, I mean, we are aware, and I want to also be able to give context to the information that you're given. So yes, it does say see policy or see performance, but I'm also highly referencing back to other OEs where I feel like it's my responsibility to give. And I'm missing. Also in OE9, it speaks to timely communication and making sure that you have communication in a timely fashion. So that's why I referenced it in that way.
Okay.
So I just have a nitpicky question about words. In the interpretation, the word estimated time frame, I wonder, is that like, do you mean like appropriate time frame, or because I'm just wondering because I don't see like any sort of estimated time frame elsewhere, and I'm not sure that it would be appropriate for there to be any sort of standardized estimated time frame. So I'm just wondering if appropriate is more accurate a word choice.
Yeah, as I thought about different words there, yeah, when I went past appropriate in the synonym column, it was, I thought, actually I said, John's going to ask me what does appropriate mean.
Appropriate?
It's what crossed my mind.
I got questions for later, but not about appropriate.
And so that's estimated. I felt kind of gave me some flexibility that I don't have a concrete number to give you. So that was it. So maybe I overthought what you were going to ask me, John. So,
You know I'm coming later.
yeah, I know.
But I think it's entirely appropriate that you don't have a specific estimated time frame.
Mhm.
However you want to express that is fine, as long as it's understood that that different issues are going to come with their own time frames, obviously.
Correct.
And I like what you said earlier about not wanting to hear news elsewhere first, but yeah.
And then I had one question too about the indicators.
Mhm.
I'm just curious about the difference between the two, because to me, they both read that they're the same thing.
And John
So are
asked
we
the same
doing
question as
indicators
well.
now?
Oh.
Or- I just want to make sure because I had the same
No,
question.
I feel like we should do each section.
Yeah.
Okay.
together.
Sorry.
All right. No, that's right.
No,
So
that's
you're
okay.
right.
You're
That's
right. You're right in what you're asking.
Yeah. No, I think anything for OE 8.1.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
Any
do it
other
now. All right.
interpretation, Yeah.
Perfect.
Go through that. So.
So I second Yana's question.
So the difference between indicator 1 and 2 was explicitly trying to get my evaluation as part of the language. And I guess we could have summarized it all in indicator 2, but I really wanted to make sure that the evidence was documented in the superintendent evaluation.
Okay. I guess I read it and it's Like I feel like indicator 1 tells us what you're going to do, and then indicator 2 tells us what indicator 1 is. Like the monitoring reports are these things.
Well, in indicator 1, I'm also speaking more to the board's, that's the board's annual work plan. And so as the board approves an annual work plan, those are actually your dates, not mine. And so I am saying that I need to make sure that I have all the data and progress reports to you based off your expectations of your work plan. The second one is more about my evaluation process.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to OE 8.2. Any questions there? Are we done with OE 8.1? Okay. Any questions with 8.2?
I have a question on an indicator, unless someone has a question on the interpretation.
I have questions on the interpretation.
Okay, go ahead, John.
So here I have questions about some of the definitions of terms. In particular, I'm not sure I understand what the urgency of the unique situation under timely manner means. And in the last one, trends, facts, and other information. I'm not sure that the non-bolded text there expounds on that much for me. And I'm wondering, to me, the notion of trends, facts, and other information, which seems to speak beyond the monitoring data that's mentioned in OE 8.1, would be things like trend line data that covers multiple years instead of the year at hand, or circumstantial data that exists beyond just our district that we're in line with, like national or statewide data or something like that. And so I wonder if you could just reflect on those two definitions for me.
Yeah, what was unique in that one is actually, if you go back to now I'm eating the mic. If you go back to the policy itself, and as I and the team were trying to tease this out, this is those cases where the policy is specifically talking about the board's work. And so that puts us back into policy, not student outcomes. So I was trying to think about what are the trends, facts, and other information that allow you to make decisions about policy. If I went beyond that, then those went into student outcomes. Now that's not the board's work, that's my work. And so it was a reflection of those specific last 5 words in the policy itself.
So I also have a question about that definition on timely manner. It reads to me, and this may not be the way it's intended, that what's considered timely is based on how urgent the matter is.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that for our perspective, that at least I view timely a little bit differently. I still, even for non-urgent matters, I still want to be informed timely. That's not the same thing. What timely doesn't mean the same thing as it would in an urgent situation, but at least how I'm reading this, it's saying that for non-urgent things, timely might mean something extremely different.
So on non-urgent things, I see those being on our scheduled reports. So, or hopefully we're in a space where, opposite of a board meeting, you're going to get a leadership letter. And so those things that are non-urgent, that are not going to change a policy, are calendared on those events. You're going to receive, opposite of a leadership letter, you're going to receive a superintendent update on that following one. So that it's, I guess another way to look at it is urgency outside of those basically weekly updates that you're going to get from me, because of our current communication schedule that's in place with those two, the two consistents that we know are always going to be there.
Okay. I also had a question about the trends, facts, and other information. It reads to me that definition kind of kicks it back to us, because it says that'll mean whatever the board expects it to mean. Essentially is how it reads to me. When I was under the impression that we're asking to know what your understanding of those words are.
Yeah. So I think I agree we probably see that differently, because I again went back to the part about the board's work. So I was intentionally kicking it back to the board.
Okay. I guess in this context that does, that does make sense, I think.
On the, if everyone's done with their interpretation questions, I just had a quick question on indicator 1. Thinking about like even myself, like how do you keep people in line of what they define as controversial? So just understanding, how do you define controversial across 7 unique individuals who may have a different litmus? And is that like what's reasonably agreed upon as controversial? Should we, because I feel like you're trying to be more inclusive and saying there are some things you need to know about board, but we also don't want to overstep in like, well, I think this is controversial because I know a neighbor who's going to come talk to me about it, right? So just wondering how you find the definition of that.
The definition of controversial.
Yeah.
I see controversial are things and items that would put the district in a negative light. I think not unfortunately, the media is our friends. Sometimes if things that I think will become media worthy, I will try to have before the board before there is a headline for awareness. We also kind of have this mindset that we monitor social media a little bit more than we used to see if things are trending into whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent. If there's confusion about it, that in itself can be controversial. So we use those tools to kind of do a litmus test of perceptions that are out there. So what I'm really trying to get at is that as I know the board does as well, I take personal the perception of our district. And if I think things that are out there that will change that perception, that to me kind of trends towards controversy or controversial.
That's more objective than like what I find controversial is like, what is the perception? So thank you. That answers my question.
Absolutely.
So can I,
Go ahead, Jen. Nope, I've been talking.
I was just going to ask maybe a tangent to your question, Nicole, to take more of the philosophical frame again of what this work looks like, especially because like you're saying, so much of this is embedded in how we're monitoring, right? Because of the impact of communicating with us. So, when we're saying, okay, this was the indicator you gave us, and now we're going to say for evaluation purposes, have you been compliant or not? Don't we partially get a say in what controversial was? I mean, so even if you have your definition and we don't have agreement on that, that's sort of our role as the board, right? Is to say, I think I'd like you to have a more specific determination of controversial in the future. I mean, just surfacing that again as philosophical, like what you put as an indicator, you're serving up to us to then say, I agree or I don't agree.
When I read this, I see what may become controversial. So it's actually asking Dr. Clarity to do a little forecasting. You're anticipating, so you may be telling us about things that don't become controversial, but we are expecting that you will extrapolate issues into the realm that could be controversial and bring them to us. So you'll be there's a little bit of divining through this that's going to take place, and your discretion about that is reasonably going to be
Analyzed.
Yeah.
I
don't know that it's kind of like, it when you see it.
Right. That's why I think the indicator, I mean, it is what it is because that's going to be part of our analysis.
Yeah.
Then go ahead, Joe.
No, you go ahead, Yana.
I just have one quick question on indicator 1, and I hope it's quick. I think I don't understand part of it because I don't know about proficiency scores yet. So, will we know what that means? Because I read, during your evaluation, we will indicate a proficiency score. I don't even know what that is.
Do you remember those images from when we had Sun Prairie with us? and the superintendent showed like that's the image I had of like the ratings that the superintendent of Sun Prairie was getting from the board. It was like yellow, green, red.
Kind of, sort of.
At least that was the image I had when I read that. I don't know if that's accurate.
That
but-
works. You don't have to go into a ton of detail. It can be just like, yep, you're going to learn how to do that later. That's enough for me. I just saw it and I was like, so like, how do I score you? Like, how do I give you
All green.
a
Just
green?
All
All
green.
green? All right, cool.
put a green on.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I was just like, I don't even know what that means. I've never given him any scores.
And so, we're kind of projecting off to about 6 weeks from now when we go there. This first one's going to be interesting, for all of us to, we're creating an evaluation process while being evaluated. And
It's also going to look different too, because we're not looking at the end results. We're looking
Yeah.
at, this is the first year of monitoring,
Yeah.
or not the first year of, it's the first year of indicators and interpretations. So we don't even have really the monitoring data. So it'll be an unusual.
correct. Well, and then not to do a spoiler, we're working very hard to put a authentic presentation of the performance thus far that just tells a fluid story of good, bad, or indifferent. To me, a great evaluation is when you're transparent and don't try to sugarcoat things that you've done good and things that, hey, we need to step it up in these areas. And that's authentic evaluation. That's the only way we get better.
So I have a question about indicator 2, but I think it's a broader question of maybe I'm not understanding the role of the indicators, because it seems to me that it's not very helpful to have a subjective standard for indicators to say that the indicator 2 is that artifacts from board meeting presentations contain useful data. I mean, that's useful data in whose opinion? I mean, that's pretty subjective. So maybe it's not a question about this indicator specifically, but about what role the indicators play.
So, sorry, Dr. Clarity, before you jump in, I was thinking that same thing. And I was like, okay, how would he make this more objective? I'll just talk about you like you're not here, Dr. Clarity. How would you make this more objective? And the only way I could reword it was like a checklist. And that's not what we want in an indicator. Great, you presented things at the board and you gave ongoing district program updates. But like, were they useful? Were they helpful? And I do think it introduces a little bit of ambiguity. Like, I was struggling with the same thing, but I couldn't find a more objective way that didn't become process or checklisty. I don't know, Dr. Clarity, if you have a different.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, I would go the opposite route of just thinking about, when I saw useful data and information, I thought as it relates to the board's work, right? So is the information useful for us to do our part, right? So like Chad just came up here and gave us information, right? It was useful for us to do our part in deciding whether or not we're going to go to referendum. So when I think about useful data, I think that it is subjective to the board, and what we have decided is the information we need to do our work. So I go back to the policy that we wrote around, you have to give us what we need to be able to make decisions that are in our lane. And that's what that is. So when you come up here and present something to us, does it give us enough useful data and information for us to say, yep, you're doing a good job. Yep, our students are improving here. Here is some areas of opportunity. So I think it is subjective, but it's subjective to what we've decided is important as a board.
Is that your intention as written?
It is, and it's also those areas that myself and the team listen to when you're having dialogue. If we're doing a presentation and you reference data that you would have liked, then we understand that we missed the mark and we try to fix it the next time. And so I understand it's one of those things that is kind of self-corrective along the way based off what I'm hearing during discussion. I think there was this one example where we did a demographic data and we did a race component, but we did not do I believe a special ed at that time. And okay, noted. And the next time we have those days. So it's a self-monitoring to make sure that you can make some decisions around budgetary any policy at that time. But It's one of those things that your dialogue at the table is actually what drives it, and that's what I'm listening for.
So can I just say that I'm glad that Joe and Nicole, you guys brought this up, because I loved this indicator. I feel like this is something I've been asking for. Like, I want subjective things, because I want you to bring artifacts that are subjective, because then it's our job to deliberate whether or not that's relevant and important. And I think that that's an important part of what we're doing here. So I love it. I would like to see more of it. I know that in another area, when we do our annual reviews, and I've talked to Meredith a little bit about this, artifacts are a big part of it. Like, you provide all the artifacts and we'll review. And we've all been on the board. We've lived it for the whole year with you. We know when you're leaving something out. And if you leave something out, that's worse than if you just put it in and say, yeah, screwed that up. And that's how those reviews play out oftentimes. So I love having this sort of thing in here. I wish it was in more of our indicators, and I'd expect that as we go through this process in upcoming years, we'll be asking for more artifacts, points of proof that aren't necessarily entirely objective, that we can then talk about a little bit.
Any other questions on 8.2? Let's take a look at 8.3. Any questions there?
I have just a quick question on the idea of the board being kept apprised. Is that prior notice, or is it just any notice, even if it's after the fact?
Can you point me to the section, please?
Sorry, in the interpretation, it says the VASD Board of Education values being kept apprised of account transfers. I don't think I'm reading that to mean kept apprised in the sense that we need to have prior notice before account transfers take place, but I just want to verify that that's.
Yeah, I think it's in combination with that first definition, that apprised, apprised or awareness. It could be in the budget report. Also, those are things that if you look at Chad's portion of the leadership letter, those things are very often in his budget component. So, but those, like a major money shift from account to account, you best beware that I'm going to tell the board about that, because
Okay.
I understand the expectations of our board. Like, 50,000 is, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's a kind of it's a minor curriculum purchase. When we get into some six figures and millions, the people that are responsible for our budget better be aware of that, and that's my responsibility for Chad's.
Any other questions on 8.3, or should we move on to 8.4?
Just quick on indicator 2.
On 8.3?
On 8.3.
Uh-huh.
Am I reading that right? It seems like it says monthly financial reports indicate any deviations. Oh, I'm reading it wrong. Never mind. I got it now. Ignore.
Okay, 8.4?
So this is where I think for the rest of the indicators, I had questions. Not that I have questions that I objected, but where, like, it seems like a lot of these become very processy and are related and specific to the manner in which we end up setting up the superintendent evaluation. So rather than asking questions about all of them, I'm just going to say that I feel like from here on out, there's a lot of incompleteness that we're going to have to be comfortable with going forward. Is that a fair assumption?
For this first year, yes.
Yeah.
Until we collectively build the evaluation process. And I also, and I use the term overthink things a lot when presenting these, because I actually agree. I could have said, well, should I just put superintendent evaluation TBD? And then I'm like, that's not our work ethic, and that's not what the board deserves in conversation. So I think this is a situation where next year these indicators will look drastically different because they will be based off some performance measures that the board has put together.
So I agree with John. However, I think I'm fine with that. My only question here was, can you give me an example of what this looks like in action? Like I had a hard time like I'm fine with what it says, but I'm not quite sure that I know what it means. So can you just tell me what it means?
8.4 indicator 1.
Yeah.
Be like the referendum update.
Yeah, so this question came from John at the February meeting. John specifically asked, how do we know that multiple voices were at the table? We were talking about hiring processes, I believe, and so that was in the back of my mind as I think about when we're looking using the referendum planning, petition planning request. When I look and I see quite frankly, what's been a majority white audience, then that means my team, we need to go to some additional places to get additional bill points on those topics. Hence the Spanish speaking one that's next week. Hence our setup where we'll go into the Fitchburg and Allied Drive areas to make sure that we have those points in it. So I know that's kind of a long definition, but I just kind of wanted to tell you where my mind was at when I heard that, because I heard that same concern in a former OE around making sure that we have viewpoints at the table. So just taking on the responsibility of collecting those for the board.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
So my question would be just that when it's talking about information is given from a variety of internal and external viewpoints, you're also going to be articulating who those viewpoints are coming from and what areas.
Yeah, we in alignment with our equity statement, we have to be okay naming populations that are speaking in or that we're getting viewpoints from, and those that are missing, and then naming those because we can't actually adhere to our educational equity statement unless we identify missing groups.
Anything else on OE 8.4, or can we move on to 8.5? Anything for 8.5?
It strikes me that the definition of significant media coverage seems too narrow. It refers to news that may appear in the Verona Press or major local television or radio news shows. And I would think that we're interested in media coverage beyond just the Verona Press, I would think.
My question.
I opened it up with, I think it was, I was trying to use the comments there, like mainstream media kind of overall, and then narrowing it into our board approved site for information. So to your point, Joe, I wouldn't mind doing that as just saying shall mean mainstream or shall mean media reports and leave it there.
That would be fine with me.
Does that,
So, yeah, I was just going to ask if it would be more reasonable to phrase this in terms of impact rather than, because I read this as significant media coverage could mean like mainstream media reports. It could also mean like things that are floating around on social media, which you've said that you're starting to track a little bit as well. And so my question would be, would it be more about saying significant media coverage means like the rapid spread of information that is impactful to the district's reputation and our decision-making process on the board, without specifically stating which channels of communication are being delineated there?
Yeah, John, I thought about that, but I couldn't add social media because it wasn't in your policy. It wasn't in the policy.
what do you mean? It
This
says,
does seem to be like very specific to like
Yeah,
media coverage.
it said,
as opposed
yeah, the
to-
policy itself was only media coverage,
that doesn't include social media?
not in.
I think I see a
There's
difference.
a difference between the.
I think the majority of millennials and Gen Zs would define media as I read it on
Gen
Facebook.
X.
I know, I'm
It's not in
sorry.
print. It's not news.
I
think-
literally don't read news unless
But I
it's
think
on
there's
a
a
social
difference
media
between
platform.
between news on a social media platform as opposed to like
That's fair.
That's,
content
That's-
generated on the platform.
yeah, rather than the platform, it's the content.
I do think that, for example, when the horrible challenge was happening on TikTok, like Dr. Clarity's office responded to it, was very communicative. And so it does feel like you're not going to get credit for stuff like that.
But that goes
But
back
maybe
to the
it's a-
controversies.
Well, I think
That's
also
true.
that
That's
what's,
true.
yeah, sorry.
No,
What's
go ahead.
what you referenced is something, because this definition to me is that it's that may appear in the media, and even something that occurs if it generates enough, controversy on
That's
social
fair.
media,
That's
that may
very
appear
fair.
in traditional media.
Yep.
So I think that would still be covered. I was just concerned I didn't want the definition to be limiting to the specific sources.
Yeah, and I agree, Joe. I think that the board would approve just a quick addendum at it right there, just and leave it at media. I'd be very comfortable with that.
I think this is going to be a policy statement that I'm going to want to review,
Okay.
because I agree
Once we
that
know what's
I agree that
going on.
media travels in different ways.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we're not tying one hand behind our back by being too stodgy in our views of what media is.
I think we also will see over the course of the year how this lives and breathes,
Mhm.
where, other OE indicators, and sections are maybe catching the things that we, not that each indicator is going to catch all aspects, but we do have so many different indicators that should be making a
Right.
very, cohesive
Yep.
net. But we'll see if there's any areas that are falling short, which is why this is a good thing that we
Yep.
review annually.
Mhm.
Okay, 8.6.
Ready for Yana gets back.
She said no more questions.
Okay, good.
Yeah, she said, keep going. She has no more questions. I'm going to move on to 8.7. Questions on 8.7? Questions on 8.8?
I just had another word that I was going to nitpick about. Is it reasonable to assume in the definition of equal access to information that board members shall receive the same verbal and written communication? My question would be around verbal. I don't know that it's reasonable to assume that we will all get the same verbal communication. I think it is reasonable to expect that we would get the same written communication. To be perfectly honest, I think that it's reasonable to say that we're not going to get all the same information, that we're going to get information relevant to our positions on the board. But particularly like verbal, it seems troublesome to me.
But,
because-
well, and if you read the 8.8 says equal access. Is that a deciphering piece here? That it's, if I should request, I can access said communications that may have varied by board member? Is that a distinction here, that
Yeah.
it's the access piece, not like the proactively pushing out, but my ability to say, could I hear more about that? Could
So
I?
if you ask, you get the same answers that anybody else did.
I mean, that's what I'm at. Like,
Yeah.
is that more the intention and spirit of 8.8? And I'm not sure what that means for your distinction, John, about verbal or written, but that, Dr. Clarity, what your thoughts?
So there's a couple of layers there. As I heard one statement, it's relevant. I think there was a statement that sometimes it's relevant on the position on the board, but on the bottom of it, it says concern to the board as a whole and upon which board makes decisions. So we're specifically talking about those areas where the board will need to be informed to be able to do their job in totality, not as like the treasurer or we don't have a secretary, clerk or any of those positions. Yeah, John, the verbal can be tricky as sometimes if something's coming down fast, I may do one call to one person to say, hey, can you let the board know to look for this communication coming right now? So it's that I understand your perspective there, because I think you would have an expectation that I am addressing the issue and not doing 7 different phone calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My concern was more that, obviously being different people with different personalities, there's a potential not only to relate to us in different ways,
Yeah.
but to say things slightly differently. And I don't want this to become a policy that can be used as a sort of bludgeon to say, well, you didn't tell me that. That would have completely changed what I thought. So I don't know if it's a question about verbal that bothers me, or if it's a question about this being focused on access, or if this is all fine because it is all framed in the terms of access and not necessarily what is actually said. But I just wanted to raise that.
I think the intent in speaking of things is making sure that anything that's going to impact your job as a board member, that every board member knows, and that's the commitment. So I'm okay with the strike with the word verbal, because almost all of our even verbal stuff ends up coming to you in written form in most cases in any way, or we can leave it as verbal with the and the intent of what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm okay either way.
Does that answer questions for 8.8? If so, we'll move on to 8.9. Questions on 8.9? Okay, 8.10. My gosh, this is a long one. We just keep going and keep going.
I was reading it. I was like, geez, you have a lot.
Of demands on communications.
Imagine the person that was putting
I
it
was like,
together.
imagine having to do it.
Duly noted. All right, 8.10. How about 8.11? And 8.12? Okay, any questions? Last call for questions. Okay, so members of the board, we have received and discussed the superintendent's interpretation and indicators for OE Policy 8. I'll now accept a motion to accept and improve the interpretation and indicators as presented so we can begin the board's discussion of reasonableness. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I
I don't even know who that was. That
That
was
was-
like in unison.
you did
her.
Okay.
That
Motion
was
from
Nicole.
Nicole. Do I have a second from Yana?
Second.
Second from Yana. Okay, let's take a look at this as far as reasonableness. And remember again, reasonableness standard is our goal. If we can zip back up to the beginning.
Excuse me, President Christian. I'm going to have Chad take the seat of the superintendent. I just got to go to the restroom. Sorry.
It's like the Oscars. We have seat fillers that come up. And okay, so taking a look at just, again, I'm going to go through, if we can go through this again, just from the board's perspective, starting with the interpretation. Are there any concerns about the reasonableness of the interpretation as presented, starting with just the overall point 8? It's weird to see you sitting here.
Agreed.
Yeah, wow.
Let's go easy on me.
Okay. Reasonableness of 8, overall 8.
I just want to say with this one, I can see why it was tricky because even when I was reading it, I was like, well, he's saying what we're going to do. But it's kind of like he has to do his part in order for us to do our part. So I was trying to like figure that out. Like this, so much of this, I was like, well, that's our part, but this is how we do our part in collaboration with his part. So this one was hard for me.
Yeah. Because it's support for the board. I mean, it's
Right.
overall.
And it's a part we haven't done yet.
Right.
officially, Right. Like what happens now because of this is still so ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say this whole OE kind of baffled me a little bit, specifically on the indicators, but I think I'm not fully understanding how that works, and it's going to click into place for me when we go through the evaluation process. So I'm kind of sitting back a little bit, but I think more than the others, this one kind of baffled me a little bit.
Joe, I'm kind of in that same place too. I'm curious
I am too.
how this is going to play out. So I'm really comfortable with how it looks right now because I think there's going to be a lot of growth and movement. It has to be a little bit dynamic to accommodate our process and our growth too as a board.
So Meredith, do we just, like on that note, do we just ask if anybody has unresolvable issues with any indicators?
We can cut right to that.
I
Chase.
mean, I'm just
Well-
wondering.
Oh, we
I
got,
just wanted to say something before we move to that part. I read this right after we did our annual review for the director of CISA, and that was broken down in a very systematic way that aligns with a lot of what we're doing. And so I could immediately see how all of this is covered in an annual review of an executive. and was like, oh yeah, so this makes perfect sense to me, but we're just going to have the apparatus in place to do that.
That's super encouraging.
And I was going to say, John, you made a great point when you mentioned like, we just kind of have to be okay with it being like this for now, knowing that like after this first year, it will look very different, right? Like I think you mentioning that was like, yeah, it was processy for me, but I was also like, what else do we have? Like we only have the process and we're learning all of this right now. So that makes sense. But knowing that you've just gone through it, it's like, it's going to click different once we actually can see what it looks like in real life.
Yeah.
Taking Nicole's, I can't even get the word, suggestion. Recommendation.
Expedited.
Expedited recommendation.
Expedite this. Are there any unresolvable concerns that the board has about OE8 as presented?
I'm still concerned about the word estimated, but
Oh.
it's not unresolvable.
But John, with estimated, you would like for him to not give himself, like not tie his hands.
Right. I would have expected the language to be more relative there,
Okay.
but
But as long as it's not unresolvable, we can keep on going, if I'm understanding correctly. Are there any unresolvable issues that we have with OE8?
3 times Meredith. That was 2.
That was 2? Okay, last call. Any unresolvable issues with OE8? Hearing none. All in favor of approving OE8 as presented to the board, signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This OE has been approved as presented. Thank you very much, board, and thank you, Dr. Clarity. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, board, and thank you for the questions and reflection. And excited for what this brings to life. You know, a year from now, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I think it definitely sets us up for robust monitoring, and I'm excited to see how it does evolve. I think it'll be a really interesting process. Okay, so in that case, we'll move on to public comment. Bless you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the board? And no online comments? Okay, thank you. All right, so public comment, we are going to move on to superintendent's consent agenda. Dr. Clarity, would you give us just a quick overview of the consent agenda? I know we usually do these quickly, but this is one, especially with Teacher Appreciation Kickoff Week, and we have all of our staff members' new contracts. This is our annual, and we also have our new administrative.
Yeah, it's the first time.
Come on down.
There.
So this is the first time for the board to go through this whole process of an annual approval of contracts. Tell us what we're doing.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
So as a part of your role as a board member, we must annually approve teacher contracts. And so teacher contracts must be given to teachers no later than May 15th of every year. And so the process tonight is for you to give us the approval to move forward with teacher contracts. They will then be sent out to all of our teachers through a system called Talent Ed. Everyone will sign off on those. So it's our responsibility to make sure everyone returns those contracts. And they are then due in the middle of June so that we can have them ready to go for next year.
Thank you, Rochelle. And so this is our legal responsibility, but we have put our trust and confidence into the administration to execute this and then just bring it to the board for our legal stamp of approval.
That is correct.
And we also want to recognize we have a new administrative hire for NCS VAIS.
Correct. We are very excited to add to our dynamic team of principals, Sally Parks. Sally, when you look at, it's kind of a homecoming. Not it kind of is a homecoming for her. She was the original director of VAIS and has honed her skills in leadership both in the Janesville School District and in the Madison Metropolitan School District, and has returned home to Verona area, and she's going to lead both schools and is prepared to work with both governance councils. So we're excited for what that means for our organization, and she clearly understands our mission and goal of representation and that expectation moving forward.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to meeting her. Jan and I get to briefly meet her virtually, so very exciting, and we appreciate all your hard work on this. And thank you for explaining. Normally, again, consent agendas are the sign off, but as we kind of go through these for the first time, it's good to see why we're doing some of these things and that we are not necessarily making decisions about them, but we do have a legal obligation. So any questions about the consent agenda?
I do just have one quick, so as we're talking, our legal approval here is strictly to re-offer contracts. It has nothing to do with salary. It has nothing to do with any dollar amounts. It's just, yes, please have teachers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll have a discussion in closed session
Okay,
about
yep,
contractual language.
wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, superintendent's consent agenda is passed as presented. Looking at the board's consent agenda, we have our meeting minutes. Any questions? Seeing none, the board's consent agenda is approved as presented. Taking a look at future agenda items, we are up to date with our future agenda items. Board, take a look at your calendars to see we have school visits that have been scheduled throughout May that look very exciting. So if you can make those, that'd be fantastic. But we're not going to put all of those on our agenda because that would be pages.
Meredith, I had one quick question for the things we're doing this week for Teacher Appreciation Week. It was super nice to have that spreadsheet. Is there, and I might have missed it, is there a similar spreadsheet to track who's going to which school visits?
So on your calendar, if you are going and you've hit accept, it'll show up who's accepted the invitations to attend
Okay.
each visit.
Okay,
And I think with as many visits as there are, so I think for board, if you haven't gone through, take a look at your calendars. If you're able to attend these, just hit the accept the invitation so we can see a list of board members that will be going to each
Okay.
site. And I know you had a concern, you wanted to make sure that there was at least one board member.
exactly.
And I went through it just Saturday, Friday to double check. And I think even at this point,
That's awesome.
we have one board member minimum at each. So
Okay, because I haven't responded to mine yet, so I was like, oh, I'll prioritize the ones that didn't have any, but,
yeah, well, I thought I saw a couple of them.
oh, maybe I did. I
Maybe,
definitely did.
All right. So anyway, I definitely want everyone to take a look at that because I think that'll be a great opportunity to get in schools to see all the great work that is going on. And that part is really exciting. So future agenda items, we are good.
I just have one question about
Yes.
graduation.
Yes.
Do we typically have like a uniform? What do we wear?
I asked my mom. Like, do we wear caps and gowns?
Okay, we can just wear
Oh, so
like
you just wear a nice
professional.
thing.
Okay, perfect. All right, great.
Mhm.
That works.
Yep.
Thank
Don't
you.
have any regalia.
I just want to make sure I don't have to do anything fancy.
Nothing fancy.
All right.
Look nice and smile and it'll be it's a wonderful day. Honestly, it's very good.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about future agenda items? In that case, we will adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public property, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever bargaining reasons require a closed session regarding potential wage settlements for VAEA, VESPA, and non-represented employees and personnel updates. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion from John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Yana. Roll call vote starting with Joe.
Yes.
It's great, Joe.
What are you agreeing to?
Go ahead.
Think about the format of the question.
Do we motion to go into a closed session? Joe says, yes, we do. Your roll call vote with Jen.
Yes. Yay. Aye.
Yana,
I.
Nicole,
Aye.
John,
Affirmative.
and I am an aye as well. We are officially in closed session. Let's take a quick minute. If we can turn off microphones, that would be great. Take a quick minute to
And turn up the
adjust.
heat.
Get some blood back.
For
I know I had to.